the Winthrop heirs. In the very heart of the London season, where reputations are made over teacups and futures are decided in a single dance, one family stands so firmly placed in society that few would dare speak against them, and yet many would dearly love to. They are the Vanes of Winthrop. At their head is Alistair Vane, Earl of Winthrop, a man of wealth, influence, and long-practiced restraint, beside his elegant, clear-eyed Countess Helena, who knows the manners of the ton well enough to wield them like a blade when her family is threatened. Their household is fortified not only by title and fortune, but by loyalty. The formidable Lady Agnes Vane, the Earl's sister, whose sharp wit has cooled many a schemer mid-sentence, and Mr. Stephen Pembroke, the family's trusted solicitor, keeper of papers, secrets, and the quiet truths inked into law. Yet even the most established houses may be unsettled by a whisper. For this season brings not only glittering assemblies and triumphal introductions, but the hum of something darker, an old matter of inheritance, a missing document, and a rival matriarch who smiles sweetly as she tightens her net. For the Earl has 4 sons, each admired in his own way, and each this year marked as prey by the marriage market. First is Marcus Vane, Viscount Larkhill, 37, heir to Winthrop, disciplined, composed, and famously unshakable, until a woman as proud as she is principled steps into his path. Second is Julian Vane, 34, charming, celebrated, and dangerously sought after, a man who laughs easily, yet carries a wound London would gladly reopen. Third is Benedict Vane, 30, quiet, exacting, and brilliant with estates and ledgers, whose steady mind may be the only thing standing between his family and those who would undo them. And last is Tristan Vane, 26, the youngest, the most openly charming, the most underestimated, and perhaps for that reason the easiest target of all. Their story begins, as so many do, beneath chandeliers and candlelight, amid dances and declarations, whispered threats and polished smiles, where love is never simple and a happy ending must be fought for with both heart and honour. And so, dear listener, if you will, step with us into the season. This is Book 1 of the Earl's 4 Sons, The Heir and the Untouchable Lady. Chapter 1. Chandeliers and Chessboards. London did not like uncertainty. It tolerated fog, tolerated rain, tolerated the occasional scandal, so long as each inconvenience resolved itself neatly into a story the ton could repeat over tea. But an unmarried heir of 37 was not a mere inconvenience. It was an affront. It was a loose thread on a garment society had decided must never show wear. So the season gathered with its usual splendour and its usual appetite, and it set its attention upon Marcus Vane, Viscount Larkhill, heir to Winthrop, like hounds that had scented blood in a bouquet. Lady Quill's assembly was the sort of evening that made even the ordinary feel gilded. The street outside glittered with carriage lanterns reflected on wet stone. Inside, the air was warm with beeswax candles and perfume, the chandeliers throwing diamonds of light across mirrors and polished floors. Music rose and fell in graceful arcs, as if the violins themselves were coaxing confessions from guarded hearts. Marcus entered with his mother at his side, as he had done 100 times before, and with the same measured composure that society had come to admire and resent in equal measure. The Countess of Winthrop, Helena Vane, was the rare lady whose elegance carried its own authority. She did not need to raise her voice to command a room. She only needed to look. "Smile at least once," she murmured as they paused beneath the light. "You look as though you have been summoned to court." "I have been," Marcus replied softly. "Courtship is still court." His mother's mouth quirked. "And you remain determined to behave as if you have never been startled by anything in your life." "I have been startled," Marcus said. "Once, when Julian attempted to ride a horse through the orangery." "Your poor father," she sighed, though her eyes gleamed with fond amusement. "He survived that, and yet I suspect it will be matchmaking mamas who finally do him in. Across the room they were already moving, mothers arranging daughters, daughters arranging smiles, and every young miss with ambition drifting like petals toward Marcus's orbit. He greeted the appropriate people, accepted polite admiration, endured the faintly hungry glances that spoke of portions and pedigrees. He had long ago learned to be civil without being captured. Then the current shifted. It was not loud, not dramatic. It was simply the way eyes turned as one and conversation softened into expectation. Lady Seraphina Harrowby had arrived. She was the Duke of Harrowby's daughter, and that alone would have ensured attention. Yet her rank was not the true magnet. It was her manner, a graceful restraint that suggested she did not enjoy being observed, and did not fear it either. Her gown was ivory satin with a subtle sheen, cut with a confidence that did not require ornament. A single string of pearls rested at her throat. Her hair was arranged in a sleek knot, with a deliberate softness at her temples, as if she permitted gentleness only where she chose. She moved as though she carried her own weather, cool, clear, untouchable. Marcus saw, as men always saw first, her beauty. Then he saw what unsettled him. The intelligence in her gaze, the calm discernment with which she surveyed the room, judged the danger, and chose her position with swift decisiveness beside Lady Agnes Vane. Lady Agnes, Marcus's aunt, was a legend in silk and steel. She had been known to end a rumour with a sentence, and to reduce a pompous lord to silence with a raised brow. For Lady Seraphina to place herself there was a quiet declaration. She would not be taken unguarded. "Ah," his mother said, following his gaze. "Ah?" Marcus echoed. "The Duke's daughter," the Countess murmured. "She is said to be difficult." "She looks composed." "Composure is not obedience," his mother replied. "Do not confuse them." Marcus did not reply, but he filed the remark away. He had known too many women whose composure had been mistaken for surrender. A movement near the musicians caught his attention, wine-coloured velvet, diamonds glittering like satisfied eyes. Lady Davenant had arrived. Lady Davenant was a widow with a fortune and a smile that could be mistaken for benevolence by those who had never been offered a kindness that came with strings. She had a salon, a network, and a gift for making threats sound like solutions. Marcus's father had always referred to her as useful, which Marcus had learned to hear as dangerous. She approached Marcus with practised ease, as if they were old friends. "My Lord Viscount," she purred, "how loyal of you to appear. London was beginning to take offence." "I had not realised London was so tender," Marcus replied mildly. Lady Davenant laughed. "Oh, it is tender in all the important places." She held out a folded paper. "This arrived at my house. By mistake, I am sure. It bears your family seal." Marcus accepted it, with controlled calm. The wax was dark and stamped with Winthorpe's crest, yet the paper looked two-handled, creased and smoothed again, as if someone had rehearsed holding it for effect. "I will have my solicitor collect it," Marcus said. "You may wish to read it," Lady Davenant murmured. "For your own protection." "Protection from what?" Lady Davenant leaned in as if confiding a secret. "From whatever it is, your family is so eager to keep buried." Marcus's spine stiffened. In childhood, he had caught fragments of old whispers, talk of a missing schedule, a codicil, a challenge dismissed. His father had swept the matter aside with disdain and money. Marcus had never thought the past could be raised like a weapon. Lady Davenant's smile widened, pleased by his silence. It would be such a pity if the Duke of Harrowby... A calm voice cut through her like a blade through ribbon. "Lady Davenant," Lady Seraphina said, appearing with such quiet precision Marcus had not even noticed her approach. "It is a discourtesy to threaten a gentleman while pretending it is kindness." Lady Davenant turned, eyes bright with delighted irritation. Lady Seraphina. How spirited. How honest, Seraphina corrected, her smile small and controlled. Spirited implies I do not know exactly what I am doing. Lady Agnes's hand rested lightly at Seraphina's elbow, not restraining, merely present, a reminder to anyone watching that Seraphina stood under protection. Marcus looked at Seraphina properly then. Her face was composed, her manner perfect. Yet there was a glint in her eyes that spoke of steel. She did not intervene to be admired. She intervened because she despised what was happening. Lady Davenant's smile thinned. We are all merely trying to protect ourselves. Then you should begin by protecting your manners, Seraphina replied. Lady Davenant drifted away at last, velvet and venom, leaving the air lighter, and yet strangely more charged. Seraphina turned to Marcus. If you accept my advice, my lord, do not allow her to corner you again. Marcus's brow lifted. Advice from the Duke's daughter. Advice from a woman who has spent 3 seasons learning which smiles are snares, Seraphina returned. Then, after a pause that suggested she disliked revealing anything, she added, She is dangerous. Marcus glanced down at the sealed note. So it seems. Seraphina's gaze flicked to the wax. That seal is meant to frighten you. Why intervene? Marcus asked, quiet. Seraphina's expression did not soften. Because I dislike bullies. The simplicity of it struck him. No flirtation, no performance. Just principle. I am obliged, he said. You are aware, Seraphina corrected, and inclined her head before moving away. Marcus watched her go, and for the first time in a long time, he found the season's glittering theatre genuinely interesting. Not because it pleased him, but because it had placed a woman in his path who did not behave as if she were part of anyone else's game. Chapter 2. Almack's and Alliances. Almack's was not merely a ballroom, it was a verdict. Its chandeliers hung like crowns, its patronesses sat like judges, and every footfall upon its polished floor echoed with consequence. A single evening there could open doors or close them for months. One rumour, repeated at the right moment, could make a woman vanish from invitation lists as neatly as if she had been erased from paper. Marcus attended because he understood power, even when he hated its theatre. He attended because Lady Davenant had placed a threat upon his family's name, and threats could not be permitted to breathe freely. He entered with Lady Agnes at his side, his mother gliding just behind, and felt the room's attention settle upon him like a cloak. Seraphina was already there. She stood beneath a chandelier, her ivory gown luminous against darker silks, speaking to an older lady with calm attentiveness. Her smile appeared when required, and vanished when it was no longer useful. She looked, Marcus thought, like a woman who had learned to endure admiration the way others endured weather. Lady Davenant appeared soon after, as if she could not bear to be absent when attention was at its peak. She approached Marcus with that same velvet ease and spoke as though offering a kindness. My lord, she murmured, London is cruel, whispers breed like rabbits. And you are here to sell me a fox, Marcus replied. Lady Davenant's laugh was soft. How droll. No, only to offer a remedy. I can stop this talk of codicils entirely. At what cost? Marcus asked. Lady Davenant's gaze glittered. Your brother. Marcus's jaw tightened. Which one? The charming one, she said sweetly. Julian. Cold anger pricked beneath Marcus's composure. Julian was not a bargaining piece. Julian was a man with a rare gift for lightness, and society loved to punish lightness. Lady Davenant's niece, pretty and pliant, would be a chain. My brother is not a commodity, Marcus said. Everything is a commodity in London, Lady Davenant replied. Even virtue, even love. I merely prefer honesty about it. You have no proof of anything, Marcus said, controlled. I have enough, Lady Davenant murmured. And London does not require proof, only entertainment. It was true. Marcus had always understood that society preferred the elegance of a whisper to the bluntness of fact. Before he could answer, Seraphina's voice came behind him. Lady Davenant, she said softly, if you are selling remedies, you ought to disclose that you are the illness. A faint gasp rippled through nearby ladies, quiet, delighted. People loved a sharp line when it did not cut them. Lady Davenant turned, eyes bright with fury and pleasure. Again? Again, Seraphina replied. You speak of codicils, as though you have studied them. My late husband kept a solicitor, Lady Davenant said smoothly. Seraphina smiled, small, brilliant. Then you know that documents may be misplaced accidentally, or removed deliberately. The room leaned in without moving. Even Marcus felt the shift. Seraphina had done something dangerous. She had returned suspicion to Lady Davenant with elegant precision. Lady Davenant's gaze narrowed. Are you accusing me? I am inviting caution, Seraphina said. A lady who speaks loudly about another family's papers risks appearing invested. It was exquisite. Mrs. Quill, hovering nearby with a cat's interest, made a pleased sound. Lady Davenant recovered quickly, her smile tightening. You would make an excellent lawyer, my dear. I prefer truth, Seraphina replied. It requires less ink. Lady Davenant withdrew, not defeated, merely delayed. Marcus turned to Seraphina. You do not fear making enemies. Seraphina's gaze held his coolly. I have had enemies since I first entered a ballroom. You should not have to fight alone, Marcus said, and surprised himself with the quiet sincerity of it. Seraphina's expression flickered. Surprise, irritation, and something that looked perilously like relief. Then she hid it behind composure. Do not offer me pity, she murmured. Offer me sense. Then help me, Marcus said quietly, not as a rescue, as an ally. Seraphina hesitated. This is improper. Yes, Marcus agreed, but Lady Davenant is not a proper woman. If she intends to bind my family, I would rather meet her on every field, law, gossip, and glitter. Seraphina's lips curved faintly, almost unwillingly. Very well, but we will not skulk in shadows. No, Marcus asked. We will fight her in plain sight, Seraphina said, where she cannot invent whatever she likes. Thus, their alliance began. Respectable, carefully chaperoned by Lady Agnes's presence, and yet threaded with something private, a growing trust that felt dangerously intimate in a world where intimacy was weaponized. Over the following weeks, Marcus discovered Seraphina's particular gift. She noticed everything. She noticed which ladies repeated Lady Davenant's phrases as if rehearsed, which gentleman spoke of tenant unrest with suspicious timing, which mother let a sentence slip, so unfortunate about Winthorpe's papers, then watched for the reaction like a child dropping a pebble into a pond. Marcus had always believed composure was power. Seraphina taught him that attention was power too, the ability to read a room as one read a letter, searching for what was not said aloud. In turn, Marcus offered her the protection of his steadiness. When gossip drifted too close, he made it die by refusing to react. When men attempted to corner her, he intervened with polite certainty that left no opening for offense. One evening at a musicale, as the soprano's voice rose like smoke toward the painted ceiling, Seraphina leaned slightly toward him. You are very practiced at appearing unbothered, she murmured. I have had training, Marcus replied. In what? Her voice was dry. In being Heir, Marcus said. Seraphina glanced at him, and for the first time he saw a brief crack in her composure, an expression too honest to be polished. That sounds lonely, she said quietly, before she could stop herself. Marcus felt the words land like a touch. "I have been adequate company to myself," he replied, careful. Serafina's mouth curved faintly. "Adequate is a tragically low standard." Then she looked away, and Marcus wondered if she had meant to be kind. Chapter 3. The Trap at Surrey House. The house party in Surrey was hosted by a marquis who loved spectacle and called it hospitality. The house itself glittered like a jewel box, marble floors, mirrored corridors, candlelight reflecting endlessly, so that one could never be entirely sure which figures were real and which were only the echo of silk. The guest list was carefully chosen, enough rank to make everything important, enough gossip to make everything dangerous. Lady Davenant had ensured Marcus could not refuse without appearing fearful. The Duke of Harrowby had ensured Serafina attended because dukes did not retreat from anything, least of all rumours. For 3 days, the party moved like a well-rehearsed play. Morning rides, afternoon calls, musicales at dusk, cards by candlelight. Marcus watched, listened, and felt the pressure tightening. Lady Davenant's influence was everywhere, subtle as perfume, lingering as smoke. Serafina endured it with calm restraint. Yet Marcus noticed the small signs of strain, the careful set of her shoulders, the way her smile appeared only when required. On the 3rd night, the trap sprang. It began with a scream. Lady Davenant's niece burst into the music room, breathless and tearful, her hair slightly disordered, her cheeks flushed as if she had been running. "They are in the library," she sobbed. "Alone. Together." The room froze, hungry. Marcus felt a rare surge of cold panic. He could withstand scandal for himself. Society forgave men. It devoured women. The Duke of Harrowby's voice cut through the murmurs. "Explain." Marcus stepped forward, his tone controlled. "It is false." Lady Davenant's niece wept harder. "I saw them, his hand, her glove." The lie was crafted with artistry, nothing explicit, only implication, enough to force satisfaction, enough to corner Marcus into a rushed engagement, for honour. Serafina stood very still. Then she moved. She stepped forward with a calm that made the room quiet without effort. "You did not see me," she said, "because I was not there." Lady Davenant's niece faltered, only a flicker, but enough. Serafina continued, voice precise. "If you insist upon inventing scenes, at least learn the geography. The library door squeaks. Anyone within 10 paces would have heard it. Yet none of you heard anything, because nothing occurred." Disappointment rippled through the room. Uncertainty followed. People adored scandal, but they loved choosing sides more. Lady Davenant's voice purred. "My dear, indignation is understandable, but appearances—" Serafina's gaze snapped to her. "Then you should be ashamed to manufacture appearances." The air tightened. The Duke's jaw clenched. "Serafina!" She turned slightly, not defiant, but steady. "Father, I will not be bartered to soothe gossip." A gasp. The Tun did not enjoy women who refused to play their assigned parts. Serafina then did the most shocking thing of all. She seized the story. "I shall be leaving tomorrow," she announced, "and to prevent further farce, my father has already entered negotiations for my hand." The room erupted in murmurs. Relief and outrage warred across the Duke's face. Lady Davenant's smile sharpened with suspicion. Marcus felt the floor tilt beneath him. Negotiations? With whom? Later, Marcus found Serafina in a portrait corridor where candlelight flickered over ancestral faces. Lady Agnes stood nearby, pretending to read a plaque with immense interest. Serafina's expression was composed, but Marcus saw the faint tremor in her breath, as if it had cost her more than she wished anyone to know. "You announced you're to be married," Marcus said quietly. Serafina's gaze held his. Not truly. You said it publicly. I said what was necessary, she replied, voice low. Lady Davenant wanted to force your hand. I refused. And what of what I want? Marcus asked, and surprised himself with the rawness beneath his calm. Serafina blinked. What you want. Marcus stepped closer, still leaving the proper distance, still bound by propriety, yet something in him finally cracking through duty's hard shell. You think I am only duty, he said, that I can want nothing beyond what is required. Serafina's breath caught. For one heartbeat she looked uncertain, like a woman who had spent years being untouchable and had begun to confuse it with being unloved. Then she recovered, sharp as a pin. Want is a luxury. And yet, Marcus said, voice rougher, you have been fighting beside me as if you believe in it. Serafina's gaze dropped for the first time. When it rose again, it held a pained steadiness. This is not the moment, she whispered. No, Marcus agreed softly, because you have just given the world a story in which you belong to someone else. Serafina's voice lowered, fierce and soft at once. Then write a better one, my lord. She moved away before he could stop her, leaving Marcus with the ache of an unfinished sentence lodged in his chest. Lady Agnes approached at once, her expression unreadable. Well, she said, that was a delightful little ambush. You knew, Marcus said flatly. I suspected, Lady Agnes replied, but I prefer to see a villain commit the sin before I choose the punishment. Marcus's jaw tightened. This cannot continue. No, Lady Agnes agreed. It must end. Chapter 4. Truth in Plain Sight. The truth arrived not with a dramatic confession, but with a ledger. Lady Agnes bought it at auction. I have my hobbies, she announced, as if acquiring dusty estate accounts were no stranger than purchasing ribbons. Inside, pinned between brittle pages, was a copy of an old steward's letter referencing the missing schedule, the codicil removed decades earlier. It named the man who had taken it, a cousin of the previous Earl, long dead, whose widow had remarried into Lady Davenant's family line. Mr. Pembroke, the family solicitor, unfolded the paper with careful hands. His face grew grave. My lord, he said softly, the codicil was taken, not lost. Marcus felt cold clarity settle over him. And what does it say? Pembroke swallowed. It confirms the inheritance. It protects your legitimacy against an old accusation. It makes clear that the original challenge was void. Marcus stared. Then Lady Davenant has been threatening us with a weapon that cannot harm us. Lady Agnes's smile held no warmth. No, my dear boy. She has been threatening you with your ignorance. Marcus rose. Then we end this. Lady Quill's salon was the perfect stage. It was there that reputations were picked apart and reassembled. There that gossip became law simply by repetition. Candlelight warmed velvet chairs. Laughter drifted like smoke. Mrs. Quill presided with feline satisfaction, delighted by the promise of something dramatic. Lady Davenant arrived confident, wine velvet and diamonds, as if the room belonged to her. Serafina stood beside Lady Agnes, her expression composed, her eyes watchful. The Duke of Harrowby hovered near her, a man attempting to be both protector and commander. Marcus waited until the room was full, until attention was thick enough to be shaped. Then he stepped forward. My ladies, gentlemen, he said, voice calm as winter. Winthorpe has been discussed as if it were a public amusement. I regret that I have allowed it. Murmurs rippled, excited, predatory. Marcus held up a paper. This is the codicil that has been referenced in whispers. It confirms the Winthorpe inheritance and exposes the attempt to conceal it. My solicitor will submit it tomorrow. A collective inhale. Lady Davenant's smile faltered. "Where did you obtain that?" Marcus met her gaze. "From those who prefer truth to leverage." Lady Davenant's cheeks coloured. "You dare embarrass me." "I dare end this," Marcus replied. Then he turned, slowly, deliberately, toward Seraphina. "Lady Seraphina announced recently that negotiations for her hand had begun," Marcus said, loud enough for the room. "That announcement protected her from scandal. It also created a story that does not suit me." Seraphina's eyes widened, and Marcus saw the flicker of fear. Fear not for herself, but for what his next words might cost. Marcus's voice softened, but it carried. "Lady Seraphina is not a prize, not a treaty, not a shield. She is a woman of principle and courage, and she has made me, against my habits, wish for something I cannot pretend is duty." Silence fell like snowfall. The Duke's jaw tightened. "My lord." Marcus inclined his head toward him, respectful and unyielding. "Your Grace, I request the honour of calling formally upon your daughter, properly. Not because rumour demands it, but because I do." The Duke's pride warred with shock. He looked at Seraphina as if seeing her not as a possession, but as a person making a choice. "Do you wish this?" he asked tightly. Seraphina lifted her chin. Her gaze met Marcus's, steady, clear, chosen. "I do," she said. The room exhaled. Relief and delight rippled through it. Mrs. Quill dabbed at her eyes theatrically. A few matchmaking mammas looked scandalized, and even they could not suppress curiosity. Lady Davenant stood rigid, suddenly revealed not as a queen, but as a schemer whose game had been seen. Marcus crossed the space between himself and Seraphina, and offered her his hand, properly, with the space of propriety between them, and yet with a tenderness that made the gesture feel like a vow. Seraphina placed her gloved fingers in his, not captured, not bartered, chosen. Epilogue. Weeks later, Winthorpe's country estate glowed under late summer sun. Roses climbed pale stone. The lawns stretched like green velvet. Seraphina walked the garden paths beside Marcus, as if she had always belonged there, yet without surrendering an inch of herself. Their courtship was not noisy. It was deliberate. It was built in conversations rather than declarations, in the library where Marcus finally allowed himself to laugh, quietly, in the estate office where Seraphina read tenant letters and insisted compassion was not weakness, in the evenings when Lady Agnes watched them with hawk-like approval and murmured, "Do try not to break each other. I rather like you both." The codicil was filed. The whispers thinned. Lady Davenant's influence stumbled, though Marcus did not believe it was gone. He was correct. One morning at breakfast, the post arrived. Marcus glanced up just in time to see Julian enter, handsome, brilliant, forever smiling, only for that easy smile to vanish as he broke a seal. Marcus's stomach tightened, because the crest pressed into the dark wax belonged to Lady Davenant, and the letter was addressed, quite plainly, to Julian Vane, to be continued. As the last carriage lamps faded down Winthorpe's Drive, London did not grow quiet, it merely sharpened its appetite. For Marcus Vane had chosen love in plain sight, and in doing so had drawn the attention of every schemer who preferred shadows. Now the season turns its gaze to Julian, the charming second son, because a sealed letter bearing Lady Davenant's crest has found him, and whatever wound he hides, she means to press it. Beyond him waits Benedict, the family's quiet scholar, already tracing ink and signatures that do not belong, proof that this war is being fought with paper as much as whispers. And last comes Tristan, the youngest, smiling too easily for a world that